Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Sue Ellam, and I'm the founder of Soulfully Connecting. And good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sue Ellam. I'm the founder of Soulfully Connecting. Today, I've got the great pleasure of talking to Debs Atkinson, who's the founder of Nature's Message. Debs does vibrational healing on both people and animals. And so really pleased to have you here today, Debs.
Thanks, Sue. Thank you for asking me.
My pleasure. Okay, so now, can you tell me exactly, I'm interested in the work you do, obviously, and so will everybody else. So who are you? Who is Debs Atkinson?
Well, I would say I'm a work in progress, really. Like everybody else, I'm on a journey through life, stumbling quite a lot of the time and tripping up and falling over. I am incredibly clumsy in life, but that's just part of who I am. I think I'm ungrounded a lot of the time, and as my mum would say, head in the clouds. I think I'm probably an outcome or a working outcome of the things that have happened to me in life. Like everybody else, I think all the things that happen to us shape who we become, and what we choose to do with those things, and how we work on them and work through them. I think that makes us stronger. So I think I'm a pretty strong person, and I like to help others on their journey through life. I think that it's important for all of us to help one another whenever we can. And sometimes, you know, it's all very nice to say I'm a healer, but really I'm the same as everybody else. You know, we are just all stumbling through life, and if you can just reach a hand out and help somebody else as they're stumbling along their path, then I think that's a good thing. So I live in Brittany, in France, with my partner and 2 incredibly naughty Sri Lankan rescue dogs and 6 incredibly greedy chickens. And we all bumble along with our life here. We're living in a slightly falling down cottage with big holes in the roof and a septic tank that doesn't really work. But we live in a really beautiful situation, surrounded by lots of lovely wildlife. If I start waving my hands around, by the way, there's lots of flies in here, so I'm not doing some strange chakra dance. I am just trying to get rid of the flies that want to land on the camera. So yes, that's me.
The beauty of rural life.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm actually finding it quite irritating at the moment because we don't have a summer. Summer seems to have passed us by. I think it came for 3 days and then it left. But we've got all the downsides of summer, and one of the downsides is that the cows that are out in the field seem to produce an awful lot of flies that arrive in the house and just spend endless hours going around in a square in the middle of the room. So flies and mosquitoes we're infested with at the moment.
They obviously like your energy.
I think they must do, yes. Yeah.
Try to put a positive spin on it.
I've been trying to practice mindfulness by just watching something, and by doing that I've actually discovered that flies don't fly around in circles, they actually fly in squares.
It's actually, you saying that brings back a memory to me of when I was in Portugal. I was in the Algarve for a couple of years, and I met a shaman there and went to a shamanic retreat, and it was like a vision quest, and we were all sent off to our own little places, and we weren't very far from each other, but because it was such a rugged area, it was as though you were completely alone because you were behind a kind of a mountain or a hill or shrubs or something. And I sat there and I watched this bee. And I wouldn't normally sit and just watch a bee, you know, but because I was out there on a vision quest, I was in that kind of frame of mind just to be observant, to be mindful.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because this bee, it would never land on any flower that was dead. It only landed on live flowers. And it made me think, by extension, how many people hold on to dead situations in their lives, whether it be jobs, whether it be relationships. They will hold on to this for dear life, rather than being like the bees. I think we could learn a lot from bees just to...
Absolutely. Well, nature in general.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm totally in love with nature. It inspires me. It's been a constant source of support and joy since I was very, very small. And it just amazes me. It's so clever. And it doesn't hold on to the baggage that people tend to do. You're absolutely right. You know, why sit on something that's dead and keep looking at it, trying to breathe some life into it? You know, move on. And nature's incredibly good at doing that, much more so than people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I find it hugely inspiring. And also that mindfulness. I'm not very good at meditating. I've got a much too busy head. So I can sit and try, but you know, in the back of my mind I'm thinking, oh, did I leave the oven on, or oh, I forgot to ring that person back. So I'm much better at just watching something, and nature's fantastic for that, just watching the birds on the bird table, or yeah, just watching the bees buzzing around, or buzzards flying around in the air. It's a really good way of just shutting up that busy mind. I find that really helpful.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm in the middle of London, so nature's not quite so close. But yes, it is. It's very grounding. It's very. I mean, we have got a lot of green spaces in London, but in the summer, you know, it's wall to wall people.
Yeah, everyone wants to cram in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Deb. So what is it that you do? Tell us a bit about your work.
Okay, well, I would say also that my work is a work in progress. It's constantly evolving. I started off by training in spiritual healing, which I loved. I found it very rigid though, and I'm not a rigid person. I'm not very good at structure. I like to push out the sides of things, and I'm not particularly organised either. So if I've got to follow something exact, I tend to be off on a different path. So although I got great benefit from that and I love doing it, I found the rigidity of it not quite suiting of me. But as time went on, I learned lots of other techniques, and I learnt some healing techniques from a wonderful lady actually called Anne Jones, who lives in the New Forest, and she really taught me about how the person that you're doing the healing with has to be so involved in their own healing. You know, healing is not just about, I'm going to sit here and someone's going to put their hands on me for half an hour and I'll come out and feel better. You've got to be active in your own healing process. And that really triggered something in me and helped me shape the things that I do. I also trained in a technique called chirokinetic therapy, which started off as a very physical treatment for physical ailments, particularly allergies and things like that. But as time went on, that too evolved and started to work with people's emotions and their spiritual balance as well. So I've very much taken that route with the emotional and spiritual side, although I do help people with physical problems as well. That's actually a very hands-on treatment using muscle testing. It's a combination of muscle testing and moves that are done on the head to help rebalance the nervous system. Sorry, there's another fly. And before I disappeared off to Sri Lanka, I went and lived in Sri Lanka for a couple of years. I was living in the UK and I was very much practicing hands-on one-to-one therapy using chirokinetic therapy, and I was also teaching it. And I started to get, I suppose, a little voice in my ear telling me where to look when I was trying to treat somebody and help somebody. A little voice might say, well, you need to check the immune system, you need to check the bile duct. And I kind of thought at the time, I just tried to push it away actually, and thought it's just because my head's going through my notes and I'm going through things in some sort of chronological order. But actually it started to become so apparent that I think it frightened me a little bit, and I wasn't quite sure where this voice was coming from. It wasn't all just a voice, it was also feelings really strong feeling when I'd be treating somebody and I'd just know, I'd know what was wrong. And the other thing that I found was happening was that if I was treating someone and they were a very closed person, I would pick up on the emotion that they were holding in, and I would start to release it. So I didn't really know what was happening, to be honest, but I would be doing some muscle testing on someone and suddenly I'd find myself crying, which is fine if you've got somebody there who's an understanding person, who's sensitive and in touch with their emotions. But if you've got a businessman that's come for his eczema, it's not quite so easy. So this whole thing threw me, and actually I ran away for lots of other reasons as well, but I ran away from my life in the New Forest and my business there, and I went to Sri Lanka for 2 years and worked in an animal rescue home, which was a really difficult thing to do and quite heartbreaking, but it was obviously necessary. It switched me off from the things that I needed to leave behind. And working with animals is just such a joy anyway. And I'd also been doing some animal healing work, and I'd learnt animal communication techniques. But funnily enough, when I was in Sri Lanka with all these dogs, I didn't really use that very much. I didn't feel that I needed to. It was just raw connection with these animals. And anyway, then it was time to move on. And I did start wondering what I was going to do, because I left Sri Lanka with 2 Sri Lankan dogs that I couldn't bear to leave behind. And I came to Brittany for the reasons of trying to avoid the quarantine process for my dogs. And I had a friend here who said, you can come here. So I arrived, and I think I had about the equivalent of $200 and absolutely no idea how I was going to support myself or what I was going to do. But where I was living at the time in Sri Lanka, in the volunteer house, 3 things happened. One was that a book suddenly appeared, and it was a book about a medium who, so I don't know where it came from, but it suddenly appeared, and I read it, and she had a childhood quite similar, I think, to my own, with lots of strife and difficulty and discord and upset. But she had little voices speaking to her, and she was very frightened of it as well and pushed it all away, but then decided to open up to it, and now is a medium. So this kind of resonated quite a lot. I also kept pulling out the same angel card every single time. I mean, it just got beyond a joke that it was just a coincidence. Of course, there isn't anything as coincidence, but which was telling me that I needed to listen to spirit. And then I actually had contact with somebody whose daughter I'd treated when I used to live in the UK, to tell me that her daughter had died. And it was incredibly sad and shocking. But also what started to happen when I replied to this lady was her daughter was coming through. The words that I was typing were not my own, and not the sort of thing that I would be typing to somebody who's just had such an awful bereavement. But anyway, I just wrote what came and sent it to her, and she wrote back and said that that's my daughter. My daughter has been speaking through you. So you know, those 3 things happened. So I started to think maybe I was being pushed in a direction. So I arrived in Brittany, and of course, I wasn't able to immediately set up the business that I'd had before, working one-to-one with people, because I'm in France and my work was in England. So I worked out a way of using this, the CKT and the healing from a distance. And the whole thing has evolved, and it continues to evolve, but that's what I do. I tune into people's energy, and I look to see where there's imbalances, whether they're physical or emotional or spiritual. And it's exactly the same with animals. You know, they're just the same. They have the same imbalances. Animals generally are much easier to work with. They're more willing to change. As we were talking about with the bees, they're much more willing to just move on and let go of things. whereas humans, you know, we get bogged down in the emotions, myself included. So so that's what I'm now doing, and I send energy to people to help them move forward, and guidance comes through. It's channeled somehow. Lots of people ask where it comes from, and I know lots of people say that they're channeling this archangel or that higher being. I really don't know. I don't know. I know it's good. I know the difference in the feelings of things that come through. Sometimes words come through, but most of the time it's feelings. It's a knowing that I receive. And also sometimes images come through as well. But above all, it's a feeling and a knowing of what to say to somebody that's going to help them move forward. And it works. I've got lots of, you know, repeat clients that then recommend me to others. So for me, that's enough confirmation to know that this work is good and it's right. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And the animal side of it is wonderful too. It's just such a joy being able to help animals that are stuck or blocked in some way. So yeah.
I think what I think is it's amazing when I speak to different people, and not just with interviews but generally, and people have got such different kind of either careers or things they're drawn to, and it really emphasizes how unique everybody is. I mean, I also did kind of spiritual healing, and I also couldn't do the structure. I had to go where I was led, and but for some people the structure is very powerful and they do wonderful work with it, and it works for them. So it is this uniqueness which is fascinating. But what you were saying about chirokinetic therapy, is it similar or a bit different from kinesiology?
Similar, very similar in the sense that you're using the muscles. When you're doing it as a hands-on treatment, as a one-to-one, then you're testing the muscle. In CKT, you only use the arm muscle, but I think in kinesiology, they test lots of different muscle groups in the body. But in CKT, you use the arm, usually the right arm if you can, and you're setting up a yes/no communication with the body, and then you're literally using that as a way to glean information from the body. So you're asking if this area is out of balance, or if this area is strong, if you've got a problem here. And then once you've established where all the imbalances in the body are, the way I envisage that it works is that all the cells in the areas that you've communicated with that have shown themselves to be weak start jumping up and down and waving a flag and saying, yes, me, I've got a problem. Thank you for noticing me. So if you envisage a body with lots of little hot spots with these flags waving, once you've finished doing all the testing, you've got that picture, and then you give a treatment, and the treatment is the chiro side of things. And I'm pretty sure that chiro, I think it's Greek, but I'm not 100% sure, means by hand. So the chirokinetic is energy by hand. And you find a point on the skull, an access point, and what you're doing with that is accessing the nervous system, and you do a short impulse on the head, which is a chiropractic maneuver. It was actually developed by McTimoney Corley chiropractor, who had very, very big hands, and found that when he was treating women and children, he couldn't get his hands into the back of the neck. So he devised a treatment for moving vertebrae with just his fingers. So it's this technique that's employed on the head. And what that does, you have to find a specific point. You have to test to see where that is. And you then do the movement, which sends an impulse of energy through the nervous system. That energy then is fired to all of those areas waving a little flag. So you're sending energy to where the body wants it, rather than me dictating where it goes. The body is doing that for itself. So you're putting the body in charge of its own healing. And it takes the guesswork out of when you're trying to help somebody. So you might think, well, you know, this person's talking about this, it must be their stomach, and they need this, they probably need that kind of herb or that kind of diet. And then you might test the body and the body says, no, it's not that at all. So it takes the guesswork out, and it's also very humbling, because it absolutely stops any kind of getting above yourself. Because if you start going down that line, then the body just brings you back in and says, no, that's not what I need, this is what I need. So so I now do that with, I actually use the dowsing pendant. So I do it in exactly the same way as if I've got a person lying on a couch in front of me. But instead of using their arm, I'm using a dowsing pendant. So I ask all the same questions. I go through all the same systems, the physical system, all the brain chemicals, all the digestive organs, the structure, the chakras, everything. And then I look through the emotions and through all the spiritual elements to see what's going on, and then ask for that treatment to be sent. And I don't really know how that works, if I'm honest, but it does.
But we're not
weirdly, it can be more powerful from a distance than when you've got someone there. I don't quite know why that is. Maybe it's because when you're sitting with someone, they're very inclined to talk, and sometimes I think that dissipates things a little bit, and it diffuses the energy maybe when you're having a conversation. So if you're just in direct communication with the body rather than the mind, maybe that's one of the things that helps. But who knows? But it's wonderful, and it just constantly amazes me how it works.
I think sometimes we're just not meant to know. We're just meant to trust, and I think that's part of the journey that we're on. I mean, so many people want to know for definite things for what's going to happen, especially at the moment everything's up in the air worldwide anyway. But people want to know for definite. And they think sometimes that spiritual life is like a cop-out. It's kind of the soft option, and it really isn't.
No, I would not say that at all.
Yeah, it's easier to go out and just decide to have a career and make money, because you can focus on that. But I think with the spiritual, you've really got to trust and just put the step forward. I always think of that, was it Harrison Ford, one of the Indiana Jones films, when they had that invisible bridge, but they had to have the
the faith that it was there.
Yeah. And I think that is very difficult to get. And sometimes some I mean, more young people are being born old souls, so they kind of come in with that knowledge. But people that are a bit older have had to acquire it. And it takes a real leap of faith, doesn't it? Well,
you're absolutely right. It does. And something else that makes me think of is the word healing. And when I first started to learn about healing, that word conjured up fluffiness and pink blankets and lovely things and nice. And it's not, it's bloody difficult. It's a real tough journey to go on. You've got to face, you have to face yourself. You have to face the shadow side of yourself. You have to deal with things that you don't want to deal with. But it's worth it. It's a hard route to take. But for me personally, it's the only way. I don't feel like I ever had any choice in the matter, to be honest. And leading that kind of life where you are more accepting of things and are more trusting of things. Again, I think I've been very lucky because I've never really questioned things. I mean, I don't know how my car works, Sue, but, you know, I know it gets me to the shops if I need to go there. So that's kind of good enough for me. And it's the same thing, you know, if I see something working or I feel something working, then that's good enough for me. I don't really need to know the ins and outs. And it's interesting working with other therapists that are very scientific minded, and they struggle hugely with the more energetic side of things because they can't see it. They can't draw a diagram of it. And so I consider myself to be very lucky that I don't question so much. I mean, of course I question some things, and there's some things that I think I've encountered along this journey that I used to think were a possibility, and now you know, I kind of dismissed that, I suppose. I mean, I'm very open-minded, but if something doesn't feel right, then it's not for me. But that doesn't mean to say it's not right for somebody else.
Yeah, I think with the healing as well, it's the healing that people you do is only as good as the healer that is doing it. I know many years ago. I mean, when I first started started the healing journey, I didn't tell people I was a healer because they'd have wanted to lock me up and throw away the key. Now it's a bit more known and more accepted, but we didn't have all the books about it, and we didn't have internet, and so you really felt you were out there on your own, unless you were a small community of people. But I remember somebody doing healing on me, and it actually made me worse. So it's really about the energy of the healer. And I remember years ago, it's always stuck in my mind, this woman, she really had so many emotional problems of her own and stuff like that, yet she was running a healing place. But I mean, it wasn't kind of just ordinary emotions that come and go and stuff like that. She had real problems in her life, and her mind really wasn't there, yet she was still doing healing on people. And I thought, well, maybe you need to, people didn't seem to realize that their energy mattered.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But I think, most people in the healing profession, whether it's being a healer or a care worker or a nurse or a doctor or anybody that's doing any kind of supportive work for others, I think probably needs healing themselves. And I think we're very, very good at giving it out, and quite often not so good at receiving. And a lot of healers, I think, have that block on the heart where they can give and give and give, but when it comes to something coming back in for them, they're a bit more reluctant to do that. So I think there's definitely a thread running through. That's a big generalization, and obviously everybody is different on an individual level, but certainly I'm pretty sure that that's how I've ended up being a healer, because I needed that healing for myself. And I always feel like I never feel like I'm kind of up there somewhere and I'm helping someone that's down there. I mean, they're literally next to me or a step behind, or sometimes even a step in front. That's how it feels to me, that we're all on a journey.
I think that's very pertinent, because, as I said, when I was a young woman, and I mean, I got into the spiritual consciously about when I was about 19, and it was my early 20s when I started to do the healing journey. And at that time, I said, because you didn't know of many of the healers out there, there was a big danger of thinking you were special, that you had kind of added powers over other people. And I know that there was a number of people around that time that had this idea that they were here to heal humanity, and humanity was lucky to have them, kind of thing. But I do think that energy has changed now, because now we know that everybody is a potential healer, and I think that's why people are so good at actually hurting other people as well, because instead of putting out the healing energy, they're putting out something negative. And
they're radiating out their own pain, aren't they?
Yeah, but it's all the energy. It's what you put out. And I think it also gets into people you feel comfortable and people you don't feel comfortable with. It's this energy thing seems to be getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's palpable, isn't it? You just know it's.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it just takes over everything, and it's becoming more and more obvious now. And you can't really get away with things these days. You used to be able to get away with things, and now it's like instant karma. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So, are there any other reasons why you went into the, I mean, we've covered a lot of the whys you've gone into. Is there any other reasons why you started doing what you did, or is it just you just knew you had to?
Well, I mean, I think one of the leading things is, we have sort of touched on it, is that the things that happened to me in my childhood, you know, were tough. And when I got to, I think I was about 16, all of that I tried to hide and put a mask over crumbled. Actually, we lost our family dog, who had been there throughout my childhood. She's just here. This is Gemma.
Oh, beautiful.
She was, you can hear my throat going.
Yeah.
I mean, so many years ago, but I still find it hard to talk about her without being emotional. But she was an absolute mainstay through my childhood. And when we lost her, I couldn't hold it together anymore. And I did kind of fall apart, and I became suicidal. And everything that had happened to me, it was like I couldn't hide it any longer. And I had to speak to somebody. So I had some counselling, which didn't really help at all. And I felt really sorry for the counsellor, because she couldn't get to me. She couldn't access the parts of me that needed to speak, and I didn't know how to help her. So so that was kind of a little bit of an interesting time. But very shortly after that, I started working with somebody who used to attend spiritualist church, and she asked me to come with her. So I did. I had absolutely no idea about anything like that. And the first thing that happened when the medium stood on the stage was they came to me and said, "There's a lassie dog standing next to you," which of course was Gemma. And that was it. I knew it was just like all these lights went on and all these doors opened. And from then on, I just encountered people that helped me on my healing journey. I mean, some of it was help in a not so nice way, in the sense of challenging me to move past things. But a lot of it was invaluable help from so many different people. And I consider myself to be incredibly lucky, actually, to have got to the stage I have based on the things that happened to me, and moving past that. You know, lots of people can't move past things. And I've been lucky enough to meet the people that I needed to meet along the way. So there's a big element of wanting to help others, because I was lucky enough to find help myself.
I also went the route of the spiritualist church. That's how I, well, when I was 19, I used to see spirit animals and everything when I was a child, but I went to the spiritualist church mainly because I thought of it's fortune telling. I was about 19, and when I was working I just come up to London, was working, and there was a temp there who used to go, and she said, "Oh, come along with me." And so I went along, and I found it really interesting, and it felt very at home, you know. And then I remember I pulled a muscle in my back, and I'd gone along, and somebody said, "Well, anyone want the healing?" So I thought, "Oh, I'll give it a go." So I went and I had healing done, and didn't feel that much difference. I thought, "Oh well, there you go," because I'm quite skeptical. I thought, "Well, you know, gave it a go, didn't work, never mind." But next morning, I could touch my toes. It was like, and I thought, okay. And so this is how I started, and I went into various circles and things. So I developed to be a medium through that. But I decided that wasn't the route for me. I knew the church route wasn't the route for me. But that was my experience of healing, which led me to be open to that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah. So we all get led. And sometimes I think we're led by the nose in different directions, and we keep ring out of our nose, but it keeps getting put back somehow.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm very, very good at ignoring the signals for myself, and end up being pushed, because I've put my fingers in my ears and said, la, 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 I do want to listen.
Yeah, I did that myself. And then eventually, you know, after years of knocking on the door, they decided, okay, now you've got to listen now. It's time for you to start. And
no more messing about. Get on with
it. Absolutely. So what's the particular challenges you have in your work?
Oh, that's an interesting question. If you're talking about an external challenge, I suppose it's trying to explain to people what I do, because it doesn't fit into a box. So that can be quite challenging at times. Internally, do I have any challenges? I suppose confidence. I mean, it's taken me a long time to trust in what comes through. I mean, when you've got information coming through and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me, and I think, God, it's just going to think I'm completely mad. I can't send somebody this, but I now do, because I did have to trust, and I send that information, and lots of people said, oh yes, I understand that, and I know what that means, and yes, that makes perfect sense, and goodness me, I feel a lot better. So I've become much more trusting, but you know, that can still be a little challenge at times. Sometimes I can be halfway through a reading and I can think to myself, what am I talking about? Because it's not me really, it's not my conscious mind that's talking. So if my conscious mind starts coming in, I mean, my mind can be a big challenge to me, and that's why I try to go outside and do my work. I find it much better to be walking around in the garden or up in the field or something and doing a reading than indoors, because I'm then connected with nature. It can be a bit that could be challenging at times, because I usually get chased around by the chickens. I did a reading a couple of days ago for a gentleman, and just towards the end, Cuthbert, our cockerel, started shouting really loudly right next to where I was standing, and everywhere I went, Cuthbert followed me. So I had to shut myself in the caravan in the end in order to get away from him. So that's not really that much of a challenge, is it? Running away from chickens.
I've just got this visual of you trying to do something, running around the garden.
At times it's really funny. But, you know, actually I was doing one a while ago and it was raining, and so I just decided to sit in the car, because the car was where I was standing and it started raining, so I thought I'll sit in the car. And a rat popped out of the hedgerow and started foraging around, so I was doing this reading watching this rat bimbling about doing his little ratty, you know, business. And that's just so magical, isn't it? It's such a lovely. Have I had a nice day at the office, dear? I've sat and watched nature and connected with people. So yeah, it's not really that challenging, to be honest, at all.
And your particular joys, I think you've kind of expressed a lot of that, but any more joys that you get from your work?
Just being hugely fulfilled, and I feel, it probably sounds incredibly corny, but I can't really describe it any other way, but I get so much joy when I do a reading for someone. I'm a real prevaricator, and I'm really good at putting things off, and I think, oh, I'll do that in a minute, I'll just do this first. And when I finally get myself out there and I do it, every single time without fail, when I've finished, my heart feels so amazing. I feel blessed and full of love, and it's just the most incredibly amazing feeling. And I can't think of anything I'd rather be doing, other than perhaps being a person that works with animals, like wild animals or something, and gets to be a bit hands-on or spend time with wild animals. But other than that, I can't think of anything else that I'd rather be doing.
It's a real blessing when you find what you're meant to be doing, isn't it? I
know. I feel so lucky, because so many people don't ever find it. And you know, I mean, there's been times where I've thought I've not found it, but I think that's because my heart was quite closed for a long time. My heart was closed to receiving in love. So if your heart's closed to receiving in, then it doesn't really matter how joyful things are, you can't connect with them fully because you can't feel it. But you know, I've been lucky to have gone through things that have helped me to open my heart, and that includes horrible heartbreak. But you know, sometimes you have to break something to allow something to come out, and I think that's true of many of us. And now I can receive, so I can feel that. And yeah, how lucky I am to be doing something that makes me so happy.
It's interesting because I know that I've read a few times that people that some of the greatest healers are people that have really had difficult times. I know the shamans, some of the most powerful shamans, are ones that were very sick when they were young and things like that. So I think it gives you compassion. It gives an understanding, and because of the world we're currently living in, I mean, myself more than you, I suppose, because you've got that connection. You're out in the, you know, you're out in the wild. You've got the, you know, got nature all around you. But I know that living in London, things are very focused on the corporate, and people have just seem to have this very focused vision of where they've got to get to. There's a lot of fear and anger. I mean, there's many people here that are doing healing and are very enlightened as well, and they're kind of lightening the atmosphere. But there is this tendency for, you know, can I pay my rent next month, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then fear takes over, and then the heart closes off.
Yes.
And it's this instant society, whereas with the spiritual, and you know, I know it just comes when it's meant. And I've learned not to chase anything. You know, if something's for me, it will come.
Yeah.
But if I chase it, I don't know if it's for me, and then I might end up with something I don't want.
Yes.
So it's just having to. Again, it goes back to trust, doesn't it? Really,
it's all about trusting, isn't it?
Trusting,
And yeah. I mean, I push it. You know, I push at doors, and they don't open, and I'm really good at keep pushing at that same door. And there's lots of people around me saying, "Oh, well, why don't you just try that one?" But I want to open this one. So you know, I can be quite stubborn. I think that's my Taurus side coming through. Pushing at the wrong doors. But you're absolutely right. You know, if it's meant to open, it will, and it just will effortlessly. I've found that all the best decisions that I've made, the biggest decisions of my life that are really important and are absolutely right, just happen. I don't even have to think about them.
Yeah.
So if I have to really think about something and keep weighing it up, then it's usually not the right time to make that decision, or it's not the right decision to make.
Yeah, I know that. I must sometimes I think I must appear a bit lazy to people because I will sit and I will wait, and people say, you should go and do this, you should do that, you should do the other, and I will say, but my intuition isn't pushing me. I get this gut feeling that pushes me to do something, and then suddenly the situation I was meant to be chasing has resolved itself. Yeah. I don't actually have to do anything.
Yeah.
But people don't tend to understand that. They think that you're just putting it off. I mean, yes, I could. I'm a great one for putting things off for tomorrow that I should have done today as well. I mean, I don't pretend there's not that element of me as well. But it is better just to wait, because it's often not all the pieces of the jigsaw are in place, and we don't know. When we're here as human beings on Earth, we have limited knowledge of all the things that are out there for us. It's only it's the universe that knows what's around for us, and our potentials and our opportunities. We think it's this, that, and the other, but there's many other opportunities that we don't know exist.
Yeah, and when we're busy pushing at one direction, we might be missing something that's far more suitable.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm a great believer in manifesting and the power of positive thought, and all of those things. But if something's not the right thing for you, it's not for your highest good, then you're going to be guided away from that if you allow that guidance to come through.
It's interesting because with the Soulfully Connecting, a seed was planted that I should start a spiritual website. And this was back in September 2011. And I started off, and then various things, and, you know, 3 websites later, we're now live and we're running, we're actually, we've got a business. But for 2.5 to 3 years, my work was trying to get a website up and running. I had one after the other, and it was so frustrating because you thought, when's it going to happen? But all through that process, there was never a minute that I didn't know it was going to happen eventually.
Yeah.
It was just this inner knowing, because I know that when something is in my life, I forget about it. It just seems to go out of my head. I no longer have the passion for it. Passion goes, and I'm onto something else.
Yes.
But this consistently went through, and it's much better now than it was in the beginning. And I've learned so much over those 4.5 years that I would never have learned if the business had gone live when we thought it was.
Yes.
What was going to. And also,
so you obviously needed that time.
Yeah, and it's about divine timing. It's possible that the company itself, or the business Soulfully Connected, I don't like to think of it as a company because it's, you know, it seems such a cold word. But it wasn't meant to be live before. It's divine timing. If possibly this is I think this is exactly the right time for it, whereas a few years ago it might not have been. So there's all these reasons, and I know that if it had been a corporate site, it would have been dead and buried years ago. But
absolutely, yeah, that's on the show.
Yeah, but some of the authors that have been with Soulfully Connected, they've hung around for a few years, trusting that it's going to happen.
Yes.
You know, and so when you're doing something that you're meant to do, and this is what I'm meant to be doing, this is my life purpose, you know, to make other people visible, you know, that's what I'm meant to be doing. And people have supported me. It's been heartwarming, the people that have stayed with me throughout it all. And I think this is what happens when you're doing what you're meant to be doing, like yourself. People will just suddenly turn up. And you won't have to do anything, you know, they will just they'll find you one way or another.
Yeah.
They need you. But I was thinking about, I met a lady, and she asked me to do some graphology for her, and I did, and I gave her some information. She was really, no, I'm not that at all. And she was really offended. So she went off to another friend who did healing another way, and she did a reading from her. Then 6 months later, asked me for graphology again. I told her exactly the same thing, and she was okay with it. So
yeah, that's, I've had things like that happen. Yeah. Well, sometimes we're not ready to hear things, are we? I mean, I know I've had readings, and I've dismissed it because I wasn't ready to hear that. I didn't want to hear it because it meant I needed to do something. I needed to change something, and I didn't want to do that at the time. So I pretended that I'd not heard it.
And sometimes I think it's also everything happens in order. She had to have this other learning that only that other person could give her.
Yeah.
Before, you know, and it could have been the other way around, you know.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's all orchestrated somehow, isn't it? And that's another thing that I love about living this kind of life is it's not about the fact that we're not in some sort of control, you know, in the sense of day-to-day things and the way we do things and the person that we are, but the whole thing is kind of orchestrated, and most of it is out of our hands. So what is the point in worrying about it all? Because it's not actually going to change anything. You know, just get on and do what you can do. rather than the things that you can't.
Yeah, it's just about being mindful, being present in the moment, and not worrying about what happens tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is difficult for people when they're having a really tough time of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes that's the last thing that they want to hear. And I absolutely understand that, because, sometimes I don't want to hear that either. I don't want to hear platitudes. I don't want to hear nice spiritual things.
Yeah.
I just want to hear that something's going to be okay now. So I totally understand. I mean, although I might have my head in the clouds a lot of the time, I have also got my feet very firmly on the ground, and I'm living in this world through these times, which are incredibly difficult. But I think one of the most important things is the ability to laugh, actually. And that's another thing that I think nature brings us, because if you sit and watch nature for long enough, it's incredibly funny. There's lots of funny things that go on, and that just lifts your spirit, and laughing's so important.
Yeah. I'm totally with you there. It's I've kind of recently inherited a budgie, and it is constant amusement. It's just the positions he gets themselves in. And I've never really had many pets and things like that, but he's incredibly amusing.
Yeah. Our dogs make me laugh all the time. They're just completely idiotic. I mean, they absolutely rule our lives. They completely govern it, and they've taken over our lives to a certain degree. But I wouldn't have it any other way. They're just hilarious. They just make my heart happy, and the chickens do as well. I mean, they're just funny things. But they do just make you laugh.
Chickens as well, aren't they?
Sorry?
They're very intelligent chickens.
Yes, most of the time. Although they can do really stupid things, but yes, they are. They're pretty canny. They know how to get round me, that's for sure.
Debs, it's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you. And I think this is our 9th attempt at this interview.
Oh, God.
So it was obviously divine timing today.
It was, absolutely. For the viewers, Debs and I have had real shenanigans trying to get this interview done. First of all, I cut her off, then her internet went, and I know I've cut her off twice. Her internet went. It's just been.
I think we started trying to do this in was it May?
Oh yeah, it's been a while. But it was
we got there.
Worth waiting for.
Got there in the end. Yes, it was. Thank you very much. And it's so lovely that things are moving for Soulfully Connecting now. You really deserve that, to be out there and doing what you want it to do. It feels very good.
Thank you very much. It's nice. There's more attention being shown, and it takes a while. We've only been live like 10 months, I think now.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to get noticed. There's a lot of noise out there, but thank you. Debs is one of our very valued authors, so if you want to read any of her musings, then then do visit www.soulfully-connecting.com, and Debs, how would people get in touch with you other than through the Soulfully Connecting website?
Through my own website, which is www.naturesmessage.co.uk.
Okay, Nature's Message is one word, yes?
Yes, all one word.
Okay. Well, it's been wonderful talking to you, and so it's goodbye from myself and goodbye from Debs.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Thanks, Sue.
My pleasure. Bye.
Bye.